Is it the Rhine River? Is it the Danube River? Or maybe something more exotic? What I'm talking about today is what's going to be the best river for you to sail on to try your first ever river cruise. Hi there, travel lovers. Is your trusted cruise and Tauck tour and Africa safari expert Shawn Power here. And what I want to talk to you today about is what's the most popular rivers for my first time client river cruisers to sail on. As you probably know from my videos, I've been selling cruises for almost 20 years now. And I've personally been on 19 river cruises. I just did 2 more last month. I love river cruises. I've booked over $30 million worth of them for my clients. So I've really had a ton of feedback, hundreds and hundreds of clients who've done them, and also my personal experience. So I kind of get, the patterns of, what people enjoy the first time around. And almost, I'd say, 90% of the time, most of my clients who do a river cruise for the first time end up in Europe. It's just, that's kind of where river cruising started. Everyone wants to go to Europe. I mean, it's, the most popular, vacation destination in the world pretty much during the summers. It's so popular. And it's just a great place to go see a lot of different countries during one trip. And to break it down even further, when it comes to the rivers you can sail on, because there's 6 or 7 great options in Europe. But almost always, a lot of my clients for the first time around are going to either do a Rhine river cruise or they're going to do a Danube river cruise. And I'm sure a lot of, travel agents who do this all the time, that's probably going to be their advice as well. But I kind of like to maybe give a little bit of contradictory advice. I'll get into some things at the end of, maybe how to experience these rivers, and I won't give traditional advice. So stay tuned and we'll get into that. But basically, let's just talk about these 2 rivers and what the difference is. The Rhine, how I describe it, it's a little bit more, that one's more about the fairy tale scenery. The castles there are just incredible. It's going to be about some small, charming towns. You'll definitely see some vineyards along the way. It's a very diverse itinerary. So you're going to end up in 4 different countries, maybe even more, depending on, if you follow some of the advice I give a little bit later. But like I said, that one is, it's a great itinerary for first timers. Like I said, scenery is one of the highlights. And I think that's what people picture when they do a river cruise. They picture sailing down. They're looking on both sides and they're seeing lots of stuff along the way. And I think the Rhine really kind of offers that. So, a lot of times you may start in Amsterdam, one of my favorite cities. I've been to multiple times. Great city, easy to walk around. Everyone pretty much speaks English, very safe. So it's a great city to kind of acclimate yourself in Europe if you've never been. Then when you go along the way, you're going to go to some charming little towns. You're going to end up in Koblenz, Kochum, Speer, different areas. I've done bike rides there. I've done wine tastings. I've done, I remember going to like a pretzel maker's, shop and trying, some of their goods. So just lots of little things you can enjoy along the way. And again, there's a couple of big cities as well. Like I said, I mentioned Amsterdam already. You've also got Cologne in Germany, beautiful cathedral there. But the ship literally pulls right up and you go on a walking tour through Cologne. Strasbourg, France is another, fairly big city there. So like I said, the Rhine is wonderful for first timers for a little bit of everything. You got some big cities, you got some small towns, you got a lot of scenery. Now the Danube, even though you have a lot of those things as well, what you have different, at least in my experience, is you have these epic, we'll call them imperial capital cities. We're talking Vienna. We're talking Budapest. And if you do it right, you're also going to go to Prague. And these are cities that change, the direction of the world in a lot of ways. I mean, when you go to Vienna, you'll be blown away. I mean, some of the most opulent architecture that you'll ever experience. And, so over on the Danube, it's more about, like I said, just mega history. Again, you got these imperial families and some of the most amazing palaces and different things like that. You've also got music is huge over there. Art is huge over there. And, when you go to Vienna, for example, I mean, you're pretty much going to have to go to a concert and, maybe a Mozart concert or a Strauss concert or something like that. So like I said, there's similarities between the Rhine and the Danube. But what it really comes down to is, do you want that more, yes, some cities, small charming towns, a lot of scenery, or maybe the big opulent cities. So again, if you want the smaller, more scenery, maybe stick with the Rhine the first time around. And if you want the more, big and bold, we'll call it, maybe go with the Danube. You really can't go wrong either way. A lot of my clients will do one and they'll do the other, later on down the road, or some will do them both at once. And that's what I want to get into now. So let me explain. So now you might want to do a Rhine. Now you know that you might want to do a Danube. So here's kind of where my info gets a little bit contradictory because Most people you talk to are just going to show you these 1 week cruises where you can go sail the Rhine for a week and you can go sail the Danube for a week. Not really how I do things, and it's also not how a lot of my clients do things. So when I go to Europe, for example, I just got back, about a week ago from over 5 weeks in Europe where I did 3 back-to-back-to-back cruises. So like I tell people, if you have the time and the money, fly over and spend 3, 4, plus weeks in Europe. For one, you're going to save a lot of money on airfare. I mean, most of my clients fly business class as I do. These tickets are like $4,000 or $5,000. So think about it. If you fly to the Rhine this year and you fly to the Danube next year and you're a couple and you spend $10,000 on your flights, you're going to spend the same $10,000 again next year. That's 20 grand. You do it all in 1 year, you're just spending 10 grand one time. Yeah, you'll need one more flight in between a couple of countries, but those flights are like hundreds of dollars. And I just did that multiple times myself last month, where I took one flight from Reykjavik to Paris and then another flight from Paris to Munich. And like I said, between all that, I ended up doing 3 back-to-back cruises. So for starters, think about that. Think about maybe doing these rivers at the same time. And I do have a lot of clients who do that, where they'll fly over like I did. They'll do one itinerary, they'll enjoy it for a week or two, and then they'll maybe have a day or two in between and then do a second itinerary. Definitely something I recommend for sure. Now also, again, don't do a 1 week cruise if you got the time and you got the money. Do not shortchange yourself. You're literally flying thousands of miles to go see these places that you probably dreamt of for decades. So I want you to do it right. So a lot of people will fly to Amsterdam and they'll do a week-long cruise and they'll fly home. I mean, a lot of people do that. I definitely don't recommend it. At the least, if you're going to just do a week-long cruise, add on a few days. Go to Lucerne in Switzerland at the end. Go to Zurich. At least turn it into 11 or 12 days. Now, what a lot of my clients do, a lot of my clients cruise with Tauck, for example, because Tauck has more in-depth itineraries. They're also the highest rated river line because they got the most inclusions, the least guests on board. I'll cover all this in another video. But the point is, a lot of my clients do a trip with Tauck called the Rhine and Moselle. And that ends up being a 14-day itinerary. You still start in Amsterdam, you still finish in Basel, or vice versa. But the point is, you're not going for 7 days, you're going for 2 weeks. Way more in depth. You also end up on the Moselle River. And when I went on the Moselle River, I mean, it was like something out of a Disney movie. It was unbelievable when you go to Cochem, I think is how they pronounce it, C-O-C-H-E-M. And they have this beautiful, was it the Reichsburg Castle? A lot of people call it the Cochem Castle, but whatever it's called, it's like over 1,000 years old. You'll see it up on the hill. It literally looks like it's out of a Disney movie. I mean, it's just fabulous. So that's one of the most scenic rivers, in my opinion, is the Moselle. And I'd say like 90% of people miss it because they're not even told about it. So again, don't go straight down from Amsterdam to Basel. Do the 2 weeks where you're going to go way more in depth. If you do that itinerary with Tauck, you're also going to end up in a 5th country. So when you do the Rhine, normally you're going to go to the Netherlands, you're going to go to Germany, you're going to go to France, you're going to go to Switzerland. If you do the one I'm talking about, you'll also end up going to Luxembourg as well. And you go to different places. You'll end up in Heidelberg. You'll probably get to go into the Black Forest. Just a fabulous way to do it. So again, 2 weeks instead of 1 is going to totally change your experience. Now let's move over to the Danube. Same thing. A lot of people will fly over. They'll do a week-long Danube river cruise. They'll get on in Budapest. They'll get off in a place called Wilshaven or maybe in Regensburg, somewhere around there, and they'll fly home. Again, I don't recommend that at all. You want to do it more in depth. So again, what a lot of my clients do is they're going to fly over. Again, like I said, I sell a lot of Tauck. So with Tauck's trip, they include a couple of extra days in Budapest. Then you cruise for 7 nights. Then you go to Prague for a couple of days, and you got to go to Prague. I mean, I was just in Prague, up until about 10 or 11 days ago. And Prague, again, is another place that you can't get there on the Danube River itself. You actually got to spend time in a hotel. So again, if you just do a 7-night river cruise, you're going to miss that. So like I said, that would be more of about a 12 to 13-day trip. Again, like I said, the Rhine, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So if you got the time and the money, fly over and do the Rhine for 2 weeks. Fly over and do the Danube for 2 weeks. You've done a week-long trip and you've seen some of the best river cruises that you're ever going to see in Europe. And then next time around, you can go do, like one time in France, I did 3 river cruises back to back to back over 3.5 weeks. That's something you can do next trip around. Then there's another one in Portugal. There's another one in the lower Danube. I did those combined in one trip one time. So the point is that, try to combine some of these if you got the time and the money, because again, you're going to save money. You're going to get more in depth, or you're going to get more into vacation mode, we'll call it, because you're gone for 3-4 weeks rather than just a quick week. You'll get more used to the time zones. It just makes it fabulous. I've done it almost every year now for 10 plus years. Now, if you're only ever going to do one river cruise, if you're like, look, I'm doing one trip for my retirement or whatever it is. It's all I'll ever want to do. Then you can kind of consider doing them both at one time. So what I mean by that is a lot of these river cruise companies will do a 2-week itinerary where you'll start in Amsterdam, you'll come down the Rhine River, then you'll cross along the Main, M-A-I-N, Main River, Main River. People pronounce it different. And then you go down the Danube. So that's usually a 2-week itinerary. And then you get to sail the Rhine and the Main in one, or sorry, the Rhine and the Danube. You also get to sail the Main, but the point is you get the Rhine and the Danube in one trip. Now, it's not a bad way to do it if you're only going to go one time, but I don't recommend it if you're going to go back because you're going to miss some things. Because you only come about halfway down the Rhine, then you cut over to the Main, you're missing the bottom half of the Rhine. And then there's some other areas that you're just not going to have time to go to. You can't go on the Moselle. Yes, you can add Prague sometimes at the end, but again, I would just do the Danube more in depth and the Rhine more in depth on their own or in one trip if you can. So anyway, hopefully I gave you a good idea of maybe what you might want to do for your first river cruise. Now I'm going to throw something totally out there that you may not have thought of that a lot of my personal clients do for their first river cruise. So when I introduce a lot of these videos, you'll hear I say that I'm a Tauck and Africa safari expert. I've been to Africa on safaris a couple of times. I go again in about 2 months from now, and I've sold a lot of them to my clients. I've helped my clients go on Africa safaris a lot over the years. So most people will they'll fly over and they'll go to Cape Town. They'll spend a few days there. They'll go out to Kruger National Park to see the animals. They'll go up to Victoria Falls to see the waterfalls, which are fabulous. They'll go to Johannesburg, learn about some of the history of South Africa. That's a fabulous South African itinerary. Or maybe they'll fly over to Kenya and Tanzania. Again, amazing. You go out to the Serengeti Desert, you go to Ngorongoro Crater. Animals are so plentiful in this area. You can even go to Rwanda and see the gorillas as I did, which was literally, I've been in 90 plus countries and it was by far one of my best experiences ever. So the point is Africa is a wonderful place to do safaris and to enjoy some epic trips. But the first time when I went to Africa, I ended up doing a river cruise in safari. So this is with Ama Waterways. They're the only ones who do it. This is a short 4-night river cruise itinerary on the Chobe River, but it's combined with a normal Africa safari trip. So again, a few days in Cape Town, you go up to the Chobe River for like 4 nights. Then you go to Victoria Falls, Johannesburg, out to Kruger Park and back. So it ends up being about 2 weeks. Point being, what I experienced on the river was fabulous. Again, it was only 4 nights. But we were in the middle of nowhere. Like this was in Botswana. We went into Namibia. I mean, I remember, and there's only like 14 rooms. So there's like 28 people on board this riverboat. So you're kind of open with you're sleeping with your window open at night. I remember one night we literally heard a lion do a kill at night. It was like scary, fabulous, amazing all at the same time. I mean, imagine being out in the middle of nowhere and hearing that. And then the next day when we get off the bigger boat to these little, smaller boats and we go out, we actually see the kill, we see the other lines feeding on it. I mean, these are experiences that you just, you'll remember them forever. I mean, it was absolutely fabulous. This 4-night river cruise adds $5,000 or $6,000 per person to the price. So this is not going to work for everyone, but point being, I've booked dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of my clients on this particular trip over the years, and a lot of them ended up being their first river cruise. So again, if you want a traditional river cruise, go to Europe, do the Rhine, do the Danube, or do them both as I described. Or if you want something really out of the ordinary and you're going to do an Africa safari anyway, don't just do the Africa safari as a lot of people do. Think about doing that river cruise as well. So anyway, I hope this gave you some great ideas for your first river cruise. Wherever you go, you're going to love it. River cruises are an amazing way to travel. In the description underneath this video, I will put in a link to my why river cruises are really fun, why they're a great way to travel video that I did a while back. And any questions at all, let me know. Whatever I can do to help you have a great first river cruise, I'd be happy to do so. So hopefully you got some value there, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.